Entity Relationship Diagrams by Ben Perez and Kristina Plauché. What is an entity relationship diagram? Well, it's a way to diagram a database, to organize the data and communicate that so others can understand. I have a few different examples of ERDs and what they look like. They can vary widely in appearance, but they all have some important things in common. So let's talk about that, and let's start with looking at entities and attributes. Another way to think of this is as tables and columns. The table name is at the top, as you can see, and then the column names are listed below. Now, the most important aspects of an ERD is to show relationships, and a big part of that is done with primary keys and foreign keys. So if you're not super familiar with this, I'm going to explain it to you a little bit. A primary key is a unique identifier that's usually auto-generated by a database. And just like their name implies, they're used to uniquely identify a set of data. And we're going to talk about that data set. You can think of it as like a row in a spreadsheet, if you have, or, again, in a row in a database. So that helps you just understand what that is. And it's the key that unlocks the rest of that data. So if you have that primary key, you can find out everything else that's in that row. Now, a real life example of this would be to think about this as your social security number. That would be kind of like your own personal primary key. And you can use that in different places and it can identify you. So now we're going to talk about the foreign keys, which are simply primary keys used in another table. And since they're used there, then they reference the table that they came from. And that's what creates the relationships in the database. So if we go back to our social security number example, you might use your social security number at school and at work and when you go to the doctor's office, and that is still your primary key, but you're using it in these different places like the other tables, so it's operating like a foreign key would, but it identifies you. So I hope that helps a little bit. The next thing we're going to talk about is cardinality. This defines the relationships in terms of numbers. So we have one-to-one relationships, one-to-many, and many-to-many. And this is a key to being able to read and understand this ER diagram. So we're going to take a look at it. So the one is represented by this, the long line that's going to go between the tables, and then it's going to have this vertical line at one end of the line near the table that's going to indicate that represents one. And then the many is going to have multiple lines. We call it a crow's feet. And that's going to indicate that part of the table has the many part of the relationship. So you'll see, one of these on one end of the line and another on the other, or you can see them both. So, for example, in our Hack app, an account could have a user, but a user could have many assignments. So that'd be an example of, a one-to-many relationship. And then you may have many notes, but they can only be associated with one assignment. So again, that's another example of a one-to-many relationship. I don't know of many-to-many ones in our Hack one, but I can give another example. Like think about if you make an order online, like ordering from Amazon, you can have an order with multiple products in it, and those products can be in multiple orders. So that would be like a many-to-many relationship. Now, there's another part of this is that you have to worry about whether or not that relationship is mandatory or optional. And that is defined also by the diagram itself. So when it has a circle, that's optional. So in this case, it would mean that this one item is optional. And this would mean that the many are optional. All of those are optional. So the one is like the circle above the vertical line, and then the many is the circle above the crow's feet. Now, if it's mandatory, it's going to have a vertical line above the one relationship. So you'd see two vertical lines, or it'll have it above the crow's feet. So you'd see both of them there. Now, you may see other styles. For instance, the Bachman style is going to use arrows instead of crow's feet, and then Chen is going to use boxes and diamonds. But the most common is crow's feet, and that's why we've chosen to use. And you can see this here in our diagram for our Hack project. And you can see that we've got our tables and columns, which are our entities and attributes. We also have primary keys, foreign keys, which we've identified, as well as our one-to-one and one-to-many relationships. And you can tell now that these are mandatory. So that's a good start there for the entity relationship diagram. And now I'm going to turn the time over to Ben, who's going to talk about the pros, the cons, and recommendations.
All right, we'll talk about the upsides first. some of the upsides here are visual representation. This helps the database designers determine the flow of data and working of the complete system. The effective communication, this is clear representation of the data listed under proper headings and tables results in the effective flow of information and communication. Readers will then easily understand the relationship between different fields. The easy to understand part is when everything is designed well, all individuals will understand the diagram. With the high flexibility, though the complete database is linked to information in different tables, the readers will easily make out the relationship between various tables. And then the downsides, we have the limited to relational data, and this is the purpose of this is to show relationships. That's it. There's nothing more to it, and that's kind of where it can be limited. With not for unstructured data is the part where unless the data is cleanly delineated into different fields, rows, or columns, ER diagrams are probably limited, of limited use. So the integration part can be a challenge because when you're using it to integrate with an existing database and you're trying to draw that out, it can be challenging because of the different architectures of other databases. So we'll talk about some of the recommended uses. And with this, we have the database design, which is pretty straightforward. In software engineering, we're experiencing that. It's often an initial step in determining requirements for an information systems project. It's also later used to model a particular database or databases. For database troubleshooting, diagrams are used to analyze existing databases to find and resolve problems in logic or deployment. Drawing the diagram should reveal where it's going wrong. With business information systems, it's used to design or analyze relational databases used in business processes. For business process reengineering, ER diagrams help in analyzing databases used in business process reengineering and in modeling a new database setup. For education, it's used in storing relational information for educational purposes and later retrieval. So ER diagrams can be valuable in planning those data structures. For research, since so much research focuses on structured data, ER diagrams can play a key role in setting up useful databases to analyze the data. And then we listed our resources, and so we found Lucidchart is actually it's a very popular site used for people to go out and draw their diagrams on there. You can get a free account as a student, but they had some really good information on there to help us understand entity relationship diagram. And then we have a visual paradigm, also had very good information to help us understand those pieces. And then there's an article in eZine articles that was called Key Benefits of Using Entity Relationship Diagrams. That was really helpful in helping to lay all this out for everyone.
All right, thanks for watching.